let's get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Eze. I work at Desplega. I'll be trying to guide the conversation today, but the idea is to have very much an open conversation between these three guys and my co-founder, Taras. Very quickly, if you want, guys, I can do a quick introduction about each of you. Personally, why I think it's so powerful to have you here. I've known Guido for a long time. Actually, I met him in France, and then we met again in Silicon Valley. He was working at Stanford at the time, and the guy has been always 3 steps ahead at least. In fact, he's one of those persons that was telling me everything about how cloud code was going to appear, and I should start thinking and rethinking my job in 2022, 2023, and I was laughing at him. So here you are, Guido, to tell me I'm wrong. Since then, he's been working on AI a lot. He actually was part of a startup that was focused on testing, surprise, surprise, with AI very early on. And then he led a lot of efforts around software development lifecycle in Globant. So I think his input on how we see the future and how this works in large organizations is going to be key. Danny, I don't know, mate. Like when I met you, I was like, oh, shoot, this person is talking with me. So for those of you that don't know, Dan is a serial entrepreneur, extremely successful from my perspective. But the most important thing for me is that even though he's a CEO, he's extremely technical. And actually, he's leveraging the power of AI so much so that we keep having conversations with him about how they are handling things, et cetera, et cetera. And he always has great feedback. So again, I think they're right now building something completely new. So very excited to what's coming. I'm very excited to hear why we're wrong. And Sergio, I was put in contact with Sergio randomly. We had a conversation, and he really opened my eyes. He's working in HeyDiga right now, but the most interesting part for me is that they were building a platform that's called Employed that was open source, and it was the first time that I saw how you could interact with agents beyond the simply coding on your laptop in some shape or another one. So a lot of inspiration came from there. And I'm actually eager to know what you're doing right now because I'm sure it's crazy. All right, and Taras, as I said, is my co-founder. He's a beast, and he's the person behind Agent Swarm, which you can see the QR code there. And the only thing that we ask you in exchange for being here, if you're so kind to put a star in the repo, I would love it. So that's pretty much it on my end. So I would love to start this conversation with a simple question that I'm going to try to reformulate, but it's like, where are you now? And how does that compare to 5 years ago in your previous role? So, Danny, if you can tell us as a CEO, how is tech working right now, and the company, if you want.
I know it's a massive question.
Let's focus in tech.
No, of course, I'm going to focus in tech. I think I can mention some topics that come to mind. One that has changed a lot is the kind of people that I like to work with. So traditionally, I always wanted to work with like very technical people, not that much like product people. I was like, no, like product is engineering, and we don't need like only product-specific people. We want engineers that think of product. Something that I've seen change like crazy, and my own thoughts have changed a lot is now I value also like non-technical people if they have an incredible taste in terms of product. More than ever, choosing what to build is, the important thing. It's not like building it. So bottlenecks are changing like crazy. We have to rethink how companies, scale in terms of headcount. And I'm rethinking the kind of people that we have to hire. So yeah, a lot of debate that we could open here.
How many people in your company right now are on the tech side of things?
So we have 5 engineers. I think like you can easily build billion-dollar companies now with 5 people. Some companies scale horizontally in terms of like you need more and more features. Some companies are about doing something very well. In that case, you don't need that much people. It's like having the right idea, not that much. Well, you can like write thousands of lines of code in like half an hour now.
Do you guys use cloud code? Do you use specific tools around cloud code? Yeah. How does that work nowadays?
We use cloud code mainly. Of course, like a lot of customization on top. We also have this thing called Coder. You can search for the repo so that we can spawn our own environments, and we can use cloud code and connect to Coder. So you're using cloud code like you would normally do, but that environment actually is running everything, right? So it can open the UI. We can literally tell Cloud Code, like, write this feature and record a video and like create the PR, and I will just play the video. Because like one bottleneck that you quickly find when you're like being a super user of AI is you're bottlenecked by your own machine. It's not the same. Like if you run it on a server and it cannot do everything, you know, it's limited. It will write the code and maybe it runs like the linting and everything, but you want it to run the full thing. In our case, you know, there's a lot of different parts, and you know, the infrastructure behind it isn't obvious. It has enabled us a lot.
I have a follow-up question for it. Like, is it something that you built for this, or is it your tool, or like?
No, Coder is, I think it has like 100K stars on GitHub. So
okay, I
not
have
ours. And it's connected to Terraform, so we reuse our infra. We're literally like, it's like production. You can spawn it and stop it. If I want to work on 3 features at the same time, I can spawn like 3 of them. They have each like separate connections for Cloud Code, and it runs on the background. But most importantly, like it's running the full thing. Yeah.
Sergio, you want to tell us about your experience right now and how it compares to the large teams you had before?
Yeah, I think it's interesting to talk about how has been the path till now. No, I think that probably all of you started with doing some questions to ChatGPT and copy pasting. Then appears kind of better IDEs like Cursor and so on, and then that experience gets merged into one environment. And then for me, there was a big step forward that was cloud and starting to do everything with CLIs, no? Because that allowed us to automate a lot of processes and start creating more things over the AI. And yeah, we also follow that step. We arrived to a point where we decide to start having machines dedicated to building things, and then was where we created Employed. That mainly what that does is that you can define your issues in GitHub. You put a label on it, and then there is a machine that it's always looking for that issues and builds it, creates the pull request. Okay. We stay working on that for a long time, and then we did a little step back because we detected that there was a better way to get better results following the research plan implement strategy. And in that plan step, there was the point where you give more feedback to Cloud. Cloud asks you about things, and especially intelligent things. And when you invest a little bit of time there, you get better results, okay? And where we are right now is we are starting what, I don't know how to say it, the agentic era, where everything around the company is observed by different agents, that agents detect anomalies or something or things that can be improved. They automatically create new issues and describe it, and then there are another agents that take that issues and start implementing them. No, then we move all the team pressure towards the review part of it, as Danny.
We can deeply discuss about that.
And right now is where we are investing more. Super interested on your points.
Do you still have approvals?
No.
No.
No. For me, using just one human for review is enough.
That was the question that, and I know that Danny, we talked about it like I don't know a few months ago when we met on like the bottleneck that right now it generated on the part of review. No, like independently on what you do, I think like what you're saying, like of moving to a more defined way to develop. Clearly, there are steps where you review. No, you review after the research, after the plan, whatever you define that. Like you essentially kind of like, okay, first iteration was like implement this. It was like maybe garbage in the like 50% of the cases. You move to a situation where you maybe reduce that to like a 20% or something like that. But still, like even if you connect it to like detect anomalies automatically and so on, like the amount of things to review, and I'm not even saying code at this point, like code on its own, but to review like meta code, like specs, prompts, like intent, so in some cases. How are you handling this? I know like I say this because you mentioned it, Danny, I know that we talked about it, and it would be nice to hear that, because that is, I think, what happens when you move into this agentic world where you suddenly have the information or like the throughput that you would have in a team of like 5x, 10x in a team that it's much smaller, no? You're saying 5 people, like you are generating what you would generate with 20, no? Like how are you, what are your learnings on this, or like maybe like, I don't know, your points on that?
One of the issues is compliance, because I think for compliance, you still need like to have some approval process. But honestly, more and more is like you're like blindly approving stuff, and it's like accountability. If you created this thing and this thing breaks stuff, it's your problem, right? There's another bottleneck, which is merging stuff.
Yeah.
Because now everything gets outdated very quickly. But I've heard more and more about companies that have removed completely the approval process, everything goes to production, and they're like still testing, it's early, but I don't know. Like maybe it's what you have to do. I have no idea. Do you guys have some opinion about it?
Too much noise today.
Right.
Too much noise.
So one question in these agentic frameworks, right? Like when you start fixing everything or applying every request, right? Because at the end of the day, now you have a superpower that before you didn't, which is, and this is why I think it's interesting for you, Sergio, and for anyone really that leads a large organization. Like usually the bottleneck is not really what you want to do, but how you make sure that what you're doing is the right thing in the bigger schema, right? And if you get into these scenarios where whenever you see an alert or not a lock in the DB, but something that's going wrong, and then you get the agent to do it, right? And it goes for the merge. And I'm thinking more in an organization that has not 10 people or 20, but 200 or 1,000, right? That could be a real serious issue, right? So how do you think those organizations need to adapt in this scenario? I don't know if you have any particular insights
I think
there.
he's probably running a bigger organization.
I was.
Any takers?
Please, Guido, you haven't told.
Well, that's a complicated question. Yet,
I know.
Well, first of all, I'm former VP at Globant until recently, but there is no model that fits all. Everything is like moving forward at its own pace and depends on the customer. I mean, it's very hard for me to signal one of the project in particular, one way in particular, because it depends on the customer. And when you have 2,000 we used to have in Globant, it's going everywhere. But it's true that there is a path today towards the more one main company. But still, you have to deal with the upper layers of the software development lifecycle, which is it's more human-like. So for technical people, it's much harder to get in that space. As well, the other way around. But these two fronts are getting together in the center, and that's very interesting to see how it develops, because it's not an easy outcome to predict.
So I keep hearing the bottleneck is going to be the human behind the agents. Okay.
It's not a bottleneck, but I mean, intelligence is changing. I mean, the cost of attention of intelligence is changing. So yes, probably we are looking for everything normally now, because there's a lot of demand. I mean, with these tools, we have a huge leap in terms of technology and things we can do. But it's true that if we have to choose, we ponder a little bit more now. Intuitive people who has a 360 information, not just logics, but also good at the interaction, very clear in the communication path and clear thinking. because communication is of absolute essence right now. Mostly when you have so much tools and you need to communicate in very short sentences with another one that has a lot of tools. So still the human is there always. I mean, innovation comes with a human at the forefront so far.
This is actually like just something that spawned in my mind from what you said. Like, I'm thinking one of the things that, for example, like this idea of like defining a process from like idea to kind of like product or iteration in the product is on how like a sentence or something like gets expanded through the process and where you kind of like control how it gets expanded into like whatever it is in the end, no? Like, how do you interact right now generally with AI? No, for example, when I'm asking this, it might be a silly question because you might say no, not from the terminal, but I don't think that's true anymore. I mean, like, I probably use more Slack with the agent form than the terminal, or like 50-50, or, well, it depends on the day, to be honest. But really, I see where the ways to communicate and how you communicate with the agent and what is in front of it before it starts like spawning like all these environments, all these things to develop. Like, maybe you need to kind of like do something initially, or like, how do you communicate with that? No, like in your teams, do you like still do it locally, like, or like you do it from Slack? Like, I don't know, like I imagine bigger teams than us doing it from Slack too.
From everywhere. I mean, there are communication through Slack. There are some things that require bigger work and to be more deep in the problem than that kind of things. Usually we move it to the CLI and so on. And one important thing that for me is also communication is how you improve day by day all the documentation and the information that the agents have available. No, for us, for example, we have a weekly meeting, all the team, that it's only dedicated to recheck all the rules, all the skills, all the Cloud MD files that we have all around, no? Because it's key in order to ensure that all the rules that we want to enforce are followed and are the right ones, and that everyone is working the same way. No, I think that's where part of your focus should be moved right now. No? Don't know if I answered your question.
Totally. In fact, like, that's been up yet another one, which is probably most of you might know about OpenClaw, so won't get into detail what it is, what it does. But like, I see what you're saying, that so essentially there's like this whole thing behind how you define your kind of like Cloud MDs or like agents MDs. Essentially, for the ones that doesn't know, like whenever you're using this type of tools, like when we mean this kind of tools like Cloud Code, Codex, whatever, there's ways to kind of like customize what is kind of like their initial understanding, their way of doing, apart from the skills, but like mostly, like you're saying, with the Cloud MD, you kind of like evolve that, right? And OpenClaw put that to the limit. Now, I imagine in teams, in the end, like, it's a really powerful tool, so you need to expand and iterate this, and you need to kind of like, I don't know, if you have a monorepo, you might have like a one, and then you might have one for the, like, I don't know, service A that knows like the little details that you need to know, because you will commit that mistake every time, because that sometimes happens, and changing that is not easy. These kind of things, no? And at the same time, if you have 10 people or like 5 people working on that, I imagine that is prone to evolve also a lot. So there's like this hidden understanding that those files put to the model that you might not really understand as a human, because you're not the model understanding those files. So that's also like, I see that a real problem that might be happening. And actually, one of the things that I was like listening yesterday was teams that are trying to kind of like everybody was doing development in a different way. They had like their own like skills and things, and they were saying, no, I think like it's better to try to unify this, like everybody like push the limit, but everybody follows the same pattern, follows the same skills, the same tools exactly. Like if we all committed to Cloud Code, we use Cloud Code. If we committed to Codex, we use Codex, because it makes everything much more reproducible between one peer and the other. Even though experimentation is great, but like from a company perspective, it's better, no? Like, I don't know, for example, in your cases, are you like pushing for that homogenization of like, of the tools, usage and so on, or like you're still in the phase of, I think like both can be correct. I don't know, like I don't have really strong opinions, but just curious, like.
We are not pushing very much towards using just one tool, but we are pushing towards ensuring that the context that all the tools that you are using is the right one. Then things like things that are super important in every pull request are to update the documentation, to update the Cloud MD and so on, no? In order to ensure if there is something that changed indeed in this pull request that implies any change that the model needs to know in the future. And it's one of the key things on all pull requests, no? That wasn't in the past, no? And it's one of the big changes.
Can I ask a question? So when you say documentation, do you only refer to like the MD file specifically for like Cloud Code, for example, or like actual documentation like we used to have? Because there's this argument that maybe, it's better to not have that anymore. It's just like read the code, right? Because it will get updated, like no matter what you try to do.
For me, the documentation is telling quickly because, and I say quickly because the context is limited. No, there are a lot of research that shows that if you grow a lot the cloudmd.md file, you get worse results and so on. Then it's a scarce thing that you have to take profit of it. No, then. We think in documentation, not human documentation. We say, okay, this thing you can find this on this folder, and in that folder explain a little bit more, and try to guide the model towards where you want them to look at. No.
Can I ask?
Yes.
We explored the documentation part when this started like 2 years ago, and they keep growing, and it's very interesting. And I remember at the time, and even last year, there was no version control for documentation, and documentation should be like either stick in the code or something outside that you should run and maintain over time with the code to stick to it. And it's a pain in the butt doing that thing. So have you, first of all, like, have you find a paradigm to mix both? I mean, the documentation and the code, and keep them updated, because that's something it's tricky from there.
Anymore, though, right? Like,
I don't know because like that's the second question. One thing is the technical documentation you get from the code, but sometimes you have a line that's very often which you don't have any idea what that line is there, and that's a business rule. And the business rule and documentation of business rule is the hard thing to get, because that's actually what defines the code. It doesn't matter what the code is doing, it's a business rule. And that's a valuable documentation to get. So that's my other question, like how to integrate, basically, how you find a way of bringing that information of the business documentation and integrating that with the code itself, and how to maintain it. If you go in that direction, you have something there, it's a holy grail. I'm not sure if you can read the code and reverse engineer the business rule.
Can I maybe answer? Yeah. I think it depends on how old your code base is. Something I'm seeing is for like new code, when you're like talking to the AI and think about the feature, if there's like business stuff embedded, it literally lives in the code in form of comments and things like that. So it's much harder when you're like working with an older code base that wasn't documented. But for new ones, I think it's like self-documenting.
Yeah, green project is fine, but most of the go to a bank. Most of the systems.
Of course. I don't have experience with banks.
Actually, there are two questions that I would love to ask based on this point. And they both can, well, actually, the first one will open the door to the second one. And they go around documentation, but they go around something that you said implicitly that we're noticing too with the companies that we talk with, right? Traditionally, the DevX team, right, was a very small team that some very large companies have the privilege to have. But what I'm hearing right now is that you at least have a weekly meeting on that if you don't invest more time on it, right? So that's a shift on the paradigm. And then the other thing that I'm hearing about, and I would love to hear, and it's our experience too, is that when you're thinking about DevX, you now have it divided in two. You have a part that is the tooling that you need as a human to understand what the freak happened, right? Or is happening right now. And probably you lack context that before you had. And then the other part is the tools that I need to give the agents to understand that, right? And we're seeing some efforts there, like entire I/O is a new way of documenting prompts in Git. I don't know if you tried it, guys. We tried. It's okay. We'll know. There's also efforts to do like agent file systems, wink, wink, taras. And other things, right? So what's your experience with that? Are you shifting to have more time dedicated to DevX? And then what are those tools that you're finding are productive to give the agents that maybe before you didn't invest that time on them?
I think we definitely are like spending more time. It's like a multiplying force now. If you can have a CI that runs faster, it's a multiplying force. If you can like have things running in parallel, it's a multiplying force. So maybe like you said before, like only like the Googles of the world had like good teams for it. I think now if you're a team of 5, you want to spend like a big percentage of your time. I once asked you that I was like, how much of your time are you spending optimizing your own work and how much are you actually doing work? And I don't know if you guys want to know the answer.
70-30, no?
Yeah, and it's what you don't expect. Like he was optimizing 70% of the time and then like actually working 30.
You're saying 5 people team, and we are if we are conservative, we say that every developer right now is generating per 5, no? Then it's 25 team engineer, no? Then you should have some DevX on a 25 because that's.
Yeah, I really like the. I think that what you said, Danny, it's a multiplying force. No, like it's essentially like almost. In some cases, probably from a business perspective, you even decide like, okay, it's worth to invest the time on this because it will make me go much faster. No, like I imagine, for example, like simple. I don't know. Most of you probably like at some point had to kind of like work with, for example, ephemeral environments, no? And it's something that if you don't think about early on when you're developing, like if you go into some place that is like really old and you want to do that, it can be almost impossible. But if you don't think about it like from the start and now, like I think it's the time that you start thinking about this really early on, because that is what, for example, enables you to develop in parallel, no? Like if you don't have a way to kind of like spin up your whole environment, even if it's hard, like it's worth investing the time to figure out something that you would say, I don't know, 2 years ago, this is impossible to make an ephemeral environment. Like, I don't know. In your case, I can imagine your complexities of like how Google Meet works, but like, I don't know. I can imagine that now it's worth it. Plus, it's much easier than ever, I have to say, right? Like the price you pay to do that, it's much lower because like these tools help you a lot in ways that you could not imagine before. That's also like true. No?
I think it has always worth. The thing is that it was more difficult to see, no? Right now it's super clear, no? Because you are with a small team going super fast and you find the stoppers super clearly, no? And in the past when you work with big teams and the pace of development wasn't the same, it was a little bit more difficult. But with I always all the time I invested in improving DevX and improving all the technical depth. It always worth. I mean, The only change right now is that it's more transparent, it's more obvious, no? But it has always been.
And it compounds also. Like this is something that it doesn't only multiply, but it compounds, because all the effort you put today, for tomorrow it's even easier. So you can like, yeah.
It's clear that you have to give value, no? For sure, companies need to provide value, no? You cannot stay always doing improving tech debt or doing the DevEx, no? But it should always be combined.
Can I ask a question? So, do you currently allow non-technical people to like create pull requests? And when do you guys think that will happen? Like, so I know some people already do. Mm-hmm. We don't yet. No. When will that happen?
You don't allow.
So like, for example, we have people that are working with our customers and doing some implementations. They have a lot of product feedback. We have a channel. They can like create product feedback. We can then spawn AI to work on it. They cannot directly like invoke the AI. I think like could grow like crazy and get out of hand. But it might happen, and some companies already do. I think maybe.
I wanted to like let's do this question, but I want to like reverse this in the sense of like, even though you don't allow that, do they use Cloud Code, for example? Because that's something that...
Yes and no. So now they're all... So we have a team plan for non-technical people with Cloud, and they have co-work and they have Cloud Code, but they don't commit to production. They use it in many ways. They do incredible stuff. They create internal tooling, but the main repo, it's a mono repo. They don't touch that.
So why don't we do this? Raise your hand if in your organization, people that are not tech can create PRs. So very few.
Well, but it's not bad.
No. How many in your organization, how many systems you have that generate PRs automatically like Sergio was describing? Okay. There's a close number there. Different hands though. Yeah. But
there was some overlap.
Actually, I have two questions that appear to me by having conversations about this. And I'm going to say both of them now, because one is going to put in the spot Guido, so I'll let him think about it while we go for the first one. So for Guido, the question is going to be, after the one that I'm going to ask afterwards, is what would be your advice to think when we give tools to the LLMs, right? How they are thinking differently, and what are those things that we need to give them? And I'll give you a very simple example. I was trying to generate images with all these tools that you have out there, right? And they look nice, but they look fake. But when I asked it to generate memes, the memes were pretty darn good. So definitely, it's learning something, right? And this example, I know it's funny, but it's very easy to grasp why, right? So that's going to be the question after I ask the other question. One thing that we notice, think about it, with love. One thing that we notice is maybe they are not using Cloud Code to actually merge PRs. But they somewhat are defining their agents, right? We've been talking with different companies. One in particular, the UX and the product team, they have like pretty sophisticated agents that are not necessarily submitting code, but they're doing all the previous work of alignment, right? Like to the point of saying, this represents this for a company, you need to talk with the CEO is going to disagree because they always disagree, right, et cetera, et cetera. So they actually build systems around that. So do you see that happening? Because, and I'll tell you why, because we don't have time for go around it. If we're investing so much time in DevEx, if we're investing so much time on the machine that builds the machine, right? Well, that machine can power other teams, right? So how much are you seeing that? How much are you seeing people that are outside your field that are very good at using agents, right, and using this technology?
Look, I'm now hiring for someone that didn't exist some months ago. I'm hiring for someone that's going to work with our non-technical people full-time, working on the tools that they use day to day, because it's impossible for them to be up to date. But there's like so much, to gain by having someone multiplying them. So I'm hiring someone very technical, previous founder, alignment with the company, and just full time, like this new thing, trying it out, teaching them and empowering them. There's so much to gain. 5 months ago, I would be like, what the fuck? What are you saying? And now I see like a no-brainer hire.
Sergio?
On our case, for example, product designers, they pull requests. SDRs, they are not pull requesting, but they are improving their open clause. No? Is that code or not code? For sure, it's not the main repo, but yes, they are in some ways doing some kind of code that wasn't possible in the past. No, then I think that once we improve all the review process and we can be sure that fast enough that something is safe to deploy, there won't be too much problem on allowing anyone to deploy. Another important thing,
but wrong.
Yeah, and another important thing is that the way technical people structure prompts and told to the agents is different from what non-technical people do, no? And that's something that you don't realize because for you it's normal, no? But I was talking with a friend today, no, saying we are all over, no? Everything the agents are going to do everything for us, and I think that the key is that we need somebody to tell the agents what they need to do, no? And that's something that I think still needs humans.
In some cases. I love the example of marketing growth, right? So marketing growth, even before AI, it started appearing, right? And usually the people working on those teams had a very high technical background, right? Exactly because of this, because they were very good at certain parts of marketing. There was a lot of judgment and a lot of other things coming into play. So I wonder how that is going to develop. And now you had enough time, right, Guido?
No, really. That's right.
Wait, you have the microphone.
So what's the better? How to do better?
What are the tools? What are the insights that they need, right? Because you were saying like they need insights here in this code, right? Or they need to be integrated, like Sergio was saying, right, with some logs, right? What are the things that they need to see or how they need to see them in a way that is different than us?
A little bit same as us. I mean, being smart, the coder, the smarter he gets, the better he can like guide those things with the new information. And hacking how models have learned. I mean, hacking, you need to guess somehow and have that intuition I was talking about of how to communicate with the model. That's what we are looking for as well right now, because like basically that prompt is the one-shot cost function if you want. So you need to be very clear on what you want as an outcome. So that's one of the things which has to do with the human side. And the other thing is like that human as well. The more interaction, I would always recommend to interact with the model as much as you can, you and everyone, no? So you know the basics of what this probably is going to be answering, because these things are going to be moving very smooth normally. So it's likely that you learn together, and the way you interact with it is going to change. That's for sure. In terms of what you do to the agents you are building, you will have to go through the human side first until the thing is solid, the pipeline somehow is solid, and there. Then yes, you can give more freedom to the model based on what was your experience designing that thing.
When you say the pipeline is solid, are you talking about the validation, the verification steps, or?
Basically I'm talking, you have so many ways of doing it, but I think one thing that is invariant over time would be the way you define the problem to be solved. That doesn't matter what technology comes in, it can like attack it. So that's why I try to give, like, I know it's a crappy answer because it's a very hard problem, you know, it's what we're trying all to solve. But if I have to focus my energy on something, it would be in this invariant thing because of all the noise there is. And one of the invariant things would be that interaction with of what you want. really from the model, which many times we start the project without knowing exactly what we want, and now we have that opportunity of regaining time from the design parts and coming to the implementation when things are a little bit more cooked.
Okay, so let's start jumping a little bit more on how these things are evolving, right? The key question here is, as humans, when we lead large organizations, we usually define KPIs or OKRs, right? Like they gave the team an objective, and then off you go, right? And usually you try to have a metric there. So that seems like something that you could start creating these feedback loops for these agents to actually try to do something. Now, you may not have the users to do that. You may not have the exposure to do that. That's a different problem that we all had in the startup world or medium-sized companies in the past, or even medium-sized products. You can be in a large company, but if you're launching feature A and feature A has 10 users, then it's the same problem, right? So how do you see this world evolving in the next year, right? Because yes, the organizations are going to need to adapt, and also the technology is going to change.
Can I?
Yeah.
Yeah, we work in the thing of metrics a lot because like having a consultancy company and you need to value somehow the what you're doing, no? And it has been super hard. It's already hard to evaluate the implementation stage. Imagine how good, how hard it is to evaluate the earlier and later stages of the SDC. But we try to converge with the customer into things that are reasonable at a high level, and this metrics needs to hold as much as we can over the project, of course, but that's a hard thing to do. If you find that the metric is the same as finding the prompt, because it's what you want to do. It's basically defining exactly the problem.
So have you seen systems where you can define a metric and then the agents are going to pull towards that metric?
Yeah.
Someone?
Yeah, when the team and the objective is very clear and the resolution of the description implementation is doable, everything fits, because like you can have a very abstract definition, a very low-level implementation, and you have gaps in the middle and things like that. But when things are well-defined and at the scope that is measurable, because you will need to measure different pieces that you are going to do, yeah, it works. The agents go directly towards that metric, and it works.
So basically, you're telling me that Carpathi's auto-research example is
Andre?
a toy example.
No, but Andre, like the thing is that it scales. Nothing scales. It's just that there's no. Everyone has its own way of doing things today, and the thing I think it's getting more and more fragmented. Coming back to your point, and it's unclear how much time you want to spend learning of what was done compared to what it could take to redo it again with your own insight. So that thing is unclear yet, and but you know what I mean. So like code much more dynamic is what I'm saying.
Okay, can you go in depth into that? Yeah.
I mean, we have that thing from when you have to do refactoring, things like that. Sometimes it's much easier to redo the whole code or the whole piece instead of trying to understand it. And when you have technology changing so much all the time, you have dependencies. You have a lot of fat everywhere. So sometimes it's just better to redo it. And with the tools we have, learning for a human being is reading is very expensive. And the machine can understand a little bit more. The thing is much cheaper for it. But the humans behind that code needs to understand those things because it needs to communicate with other people. I mean, I'm going to the practical things beyond the illusion.
Well, it's interesting because we started this conversation talking about green and brown projects, right? And basically what you're saying is for some of the brown projects, maybe easier to somewhat migrate it to something new.
Yeah.
And as LLMs get more powerful, that's going to be more of the case.
Because the cost of the observer, let's say the human observer, to absorb what was done is very big compared to redoing the thing again in a way that you will understand it. So probably, I don't know, but like maybe you could have your code, his code, my code, that depending on the moment, one is running or the other in the same, for the same functionality. And we have different understanding of that thing.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yes. Interesting.
Can I make one comment?
You can make all the comments that you want. That's why you're here.
So you mentioned the problem of startups not having users, but now you can create your own users. Like you can literally have AIs like playing the role of your users. We do that for some things. And the second comment is like you mentioned like evaluating things. I think more than ever, if you can like define what success looks like for something, I mean, it is real. You can have a loop that like optimizes stuff, and that's crazy. In our case, well, we build these agents that do video calls, show products. We literally simulate our users and optimize for things, and it's mind-blowing.
Sergio, anything to add? All right. No, I see one question. Two questions.
All right, it's something that you were talking a little bit a few minutes ago, and we were kind of discussing more or less about it. But I wonder, like, for example, Sergio was talking about, it's super important for us on PRs to actually update documentation so that it's up to date and all that. And you were, Danny, discussing, well, maybe it's not necessary nowadays because LLMs are very good at self-discovery and all that, no? So maybe we don't need to do that. And I wonder if you guys have a way of actually determining if changing the context in some way is going to be better or worse, or how do you evaluate? Because right now, building context is somewhat esoteric. It's like an art. You can guess about what's better, what's worse. But in the end, is there a way of actually, or having some metrics to actually determine what's better or what's worse?
I think it's a really good question for coding specifically. We don't do anything, but I do have something that Claude released some time ago, like a command that basically analyzes all your conversations. I think that's kind of like one approach that's interesting, because it said like, you're repeating this so often, you should probably create like some documentation. Like maybe now thinking about it, we should like incorporate this regularly.
Actually, Taras, I don't know if you want to talk a bit about what we do there.
Well, like you said, like summarize, like what?
No. So like no, insights. Exactly, the insights.
Insights.
I mean,
yeah. Well, I think like regarding this, I completely agree that there's no answer to this question. Like anybody that says like there's a clear answer, I think is lying completely. And my point is, like two things, no? Like one on like what you said, and one to your question. Like to your question is like, how do we try to approach it is evaluate what you can. If you can deterministically do it, like for example, like one really easy thing, like number of test cases should never decrease. Like that, I don't know, like set that as an action. Like that should never decrease. Like things, like silly things like that can help a lot on the process, no? Like especially when, for example, like these kind of things. The test maybe not the best example, but you can think of these type of cases. Like that's on one end. And in the other end is like, another way to, that is like, I think like in parallel to evaluation is having a predefined process that you follow. Like I really believe that in this case, where the same way as humans, like if you ask me like to do X in 10 different ways every time, and I have no process to do that thing, maybe one day I feel like whatever and I do it this way, tomorrow this other way. But if you say, okay, to do anything that you will do, you will follow this process. Then I think like, even though these slight changes like might happen, you know that, okay, if I have these holes where I review the process in these steps, and I do it like 10 times per day, and you kind of like see, like you feel as a human, you see, okay, like, does this change make me review more? Does this yield more like comments in the whatever, no? Like if you follow a process, somehow you kind of like develop a better human intuition, and this like Guido relates to yours, like that helps you also like improve your prompting, because you know like, okay, seems like when I prompt it this way, it's better. Okay, maybe let's add it to the Claude MD. Okay, does it change or not? Like it's almost like human evaluation, but you will still be working on that, so you can use your own feedback as evaluation material, right? That's like my thought. And
on experience, you can notice very well that when you change something, it works better or it works worse. but I wonder if there's an empirical way of actually, measuring this and to make sure that it's not something subjective, no?
I think the whole point is that, like the answer, I mean, from my perspective is no. Like you can have like evals based on LLMs and have some confidence, but I mean, it's all like probabilistic to some extent, no? Like
if it's very, sorry, can I? If it's very obvious for you, build a data set and train very quickly a model, and then you have it. What you have is in your mind is the cost function, so split a couple of examples and that's it. That's the way.
And regarding your point, really quick, there's a whole article on like CloudMDs and why they matter and they should be generated by AI or not. Like these kind of things, like whatever goes to the CloudMD, for at least like my recommendation, talking to people, and I guess like that's what you're doing. But if not, like reconsider it. Is like you should be extremely careful and really reading every line that goes into that. That's the only thing that my 2 cents. So like getting those insights, as if those insights are generated by AI, you should really figure out, okay, is this like legit or not? But yeah.
I think that there are minor things that for sure doesn't need to be added to the documentation. But for example, imagine that you add an audit system to all the actions. Then once you do that, you want that all the new code follows this audit process, no? Then you have to put this in your somewhere, no? It's ideally in cloud.md, no? Because it's an important thing. Okay. But if you make a little change, it makes no sense to change probably the documentation.
Yeah. Okay, so I have actually 3 questions. So they accumulated. So question 1, do you do automated debugging? For example, on the server you have open telemetry, it writes somewhere and then a model via MCP consumes that and it goes in circle, so it checks the code that is running right now. So that's question number 1. Do you use anything like that? Question number 2, so suppose you have different teams, and instead of standardizing everything, models, agents, even APIs, maybe you use MCP to let the different subsystems at the start communicate the new API, which didn't exist at the beginning, and then work it, right? And question number 3 is obviously Gastown. Have any of you used it? And if not, why not?
Sorry, the third one?
Gastown, that's like OpenClaw, but for coding, right?
Okay, first of all, I think that for us right now, MCPs didn't work as well as clear APIs explained in a skill in some skills. No, we have better results without the MCPs and just creating our own skills that use the subset of functionality that you need from that what that MCP can cover. Okay, then regarding observability, we have agents that look to all the logs and all the alerts and all the telemetry from a completely different angle and a fresh one, and then they detect some anomalies, no, and they raise that things. And the third question, I don't remember. Sorry. Gastown. Yeah. Too much. Too much for me at least. Yeah, I try it, but I think there is kind of the direction, but near that, but not exactly that.
Haven't tried it. I have like running 2 companies. One I don't spend a lot of time, but in that company, everybody's using OpenClaw and a lot of times for coding. So I'm guessing like it's very similar, but it's basically like because it owns the whole environment, it will like just iterate. We have a lot of observability, but we don't have agents continuously checking. We still receive alerts and calls on our phones, and then like invoke whatever. It's accountability. Wake up someone. Like if we wake up the agent, there's not that much pressure.
I think it's one thing that doesn't.
No, of course. I'd love to like know exactly what you're looking for, and are you like reading the whole like the full logs? What do you use? Like we have Datadog. Like I don't. How do you have it set it up right now?
We have an agent that it's looking at the alerts and the anomalies that Datadog is raising, and it learns because we told them what there is when there is noise, and then it doesn't show that noise, and when there is something important, it raises alerts to us. It wake up us, and when it finds that there is something that needs to be fixed, it proposes issues to be solved.
But that's production. Do you use it in development?
I think
no, in development, no. There is one of the steps in the development process that checks the quality, but from the development angle, no. This is from
how would you like? Do you do that?
Yeah.
But do you have like usage? Like because like what is it monitoring
for example,
exactly?
You have a client like Edge browser.
Yeah.
It clicks.
Yeah.
Then you have the server code.
Yeah.
And it provides observability, and the model sees everything.
So you kind of have like end-to-end testing that's like clicking through the UI, but then you're checking at the observability logs.
At the same time. Yeah.
That's cool. Nice.
I think regarding this is what we're talking before about the tools. No, like for any of you that see yourself copy pasting console logs from the browser to the LLM, just the second time you do it in a single day, consider how you cannot do it. No, and I think your question went in this direction of like, and there's, I don't know, like 25 tools. Like we have one that is called QAUs that does what Agent Browser does. Like, and the whole point is that give the agent the tools to see not only what it's doing and to be able to do things, but what is happening. No, like see. Obviously, it should see all the logs. Like, I don't know if you know about the tool that is called PM2, which is like an old one, which is literally just to spin up things locally. Now, the good thing about that is that it writes automatically to a file. So you automatically can say to the agent, you use PM2. As it was trained much more time after PM2 was created, it probably knows, and it's really easy to use, so it's easy to like inspect. And it knows how to use it. Checks the logs and it restarts itself. Like that is extremely powerful. Like that's probably the first thing that you would want to do for any of you that are like using these CLI tools and are seeing like, and you ask yourself, what's the next step? Like that's the immediate next step. No, like just give more tools to the agent that you run locally. No, and then from that point onwards, like there's a ton of like upward. No?
I'm going to start there, then there, and somebody else in the back.
Maybe it's tilting to a little bit of another direction, but I read the title, The Future of Software Engineering, and I also think about how to build teams that work with these tools. And some of you mentioned that you're rethinking the people that you hire. I wanted to know if you have any idea of how, because we know more or less how the textbook team of engineers from, I don't know, 20 years ago, that you read in the books how to organize people, and I think this is changing a lot. How do you think, so what structure of a team will harness better this power of AI, and how has this impacted your hiring processes in the profiles that you're looking for?
Just an additional question, what is the future of the software engineer in this team as well? Because you didn't mention this yet.
I think a lot of people focus on like age of the people you're hiring. I think the right angle is like elasticity, and usually like age is like a good proxy for elasticity. You hire like younger people, they have like less preconceived ideas of how to do things. In our case, if we can hire someone like both experienced and elastic, that's the sweet spot. Like it's like, you know, they will know like how to guide, and they have a lot of intuition that maybe you're younger, you don't have. But at the same time, of course, you need them to like completely destroy everything they know, because like we constantly are doing that right now. About the future of engineering, honestly, like I have nightmares about it. like honestly, like it's one of the most stressful times in my life in some sort of way. Not because I make a living of coding, because it's like my passion, not what I do like full time, but it's changing so fast, and I'm like reading Twitter all the time. It's an explosion. I guess someone still needs to know what's happening, right? But at the same time, then I see like all these like outdoor research stuff, and then maybe at some point we just don't know. It just like iterates on its own, and maybe the future is like everything's like just exponentially increasing, and nobody's capable of like, it's not humanly possible to understand anymore what's going on. Like maybe that happens. Sorry, it might sound destructive.
Well, I don't know if Sergio or Guido want to say something about this. Otherwise,
yeah.
On the hiring side, with the demand that there is, big companies are looking for everything. It's true that AI has hit at least software development companies on services in different places. They are still adapting or trying to adapt. But the technical people is more and more on the search, no? But and the thing is there that what we see is between older generations and newer generations are different in the way of doing. So teams, if you can get experts and mix them up with the younger ones, it's good, because they are going to end up the formation inside of your premises somehow. And the way of working is completely different. So some guidance of structure, order, and ways of doing things, which are probably outdated, but they need to go through a transition. It's good for a much younger energy, let's say, that comes with a lot of noise. And today, today we see as well, coming back to the documentation part, this is completely different, the way of writing and of reading of younger people compared to older people. Long format writing, which you need in documents and things like that, it's not even something that young people has patience to read anymore. So you need to adapt to that thing as well, and the combination is something that is working. It's the best we have, basically. So the other question, future of engineering. Future of engineering, of software engineering in the life cycle. Like I will be like very short. So like basically, find the best way of like shrinking the whole thing up, and then passing the problem to the communication between those one-man projects, let's say. That's what we see now, but like you can go as much as you can in the future, and the more you touch lower level technology, let's say you go into physics, you go into healthcare or whatever like that, no, physics, most of things like that, or quantum and stuff like that, it's going to change the whole thing of development upwards. So, and I think that the technologies are being developed now, the things that this thing opens the possibility of making a lot of breakthrough findings in those spaces. And so it's very hard to predict in the long term. But the vertical and horizontal shrinking, horizontal with your peers and vertical with the different layers of the software development lifecycle is happening. And what we see is that it's much more, it's not much more, but if you can upgrade a technical thinking, logical person with that formation into a more soft in the communication side, design, and planning, which is something natural that happens inside of the company. It's just you want to boost it. That person is going to be, if it is young, even better. It's going to be much more complete for the times that are coming.
So actually, on this respect, I have a particular view. And I don't know what you all think about it, but it seems that if we move to a world where we have a swarm of agents, right, an agent swarm doing all this low-level IC work, to call it somewhat, right? Like actually the skills of management and tech leads, right, of large organizations, or the people leading, not even managing persons, because maybe the human skills are not needed except for the communication and aligning the project, et cetera, but those skills come to play and become very handy, right? So actually, we talked with two companies that what they were doing is they were hiring managers or TLs. And they were telling them, now you're going back to be your IC of your 7 Cloud Code windows, right? But really, you are doing the job that you did as a manager or as a TL. Do you
It's
agree
not
with
even that
view?
obvious, right? Because like if the models become like smart enough, then they can also manage, and then maybe everything shifts to just like human relationships. And I think like maybe we saw like a world that, you know, empowered salespeople and engineers were like, well, you know, I'm not that old, but you know, developers, you know, like that time. And now like then developers became the most important people in organizations, and we all felt like incredible. We made much more money than anyone else. And then it feels like maybe we'll go back to like, you know, just, hey, dude. And then, you know, yeah, I'm going to buy from you because you're my friend. Even managing could be done by the AI, honestly. Yeah, I think that we're going full circle.
You buy from a friend. I mean, Santander's buy from that because there's a trust. And
Yeah,
that's not replaced.
it doesn't apply for every single kind of like company. I think like some companies will be more like just everything's run by AI. Some companies will have a lot of human stuff, but I'm not sure like management is going to be like a very human thing for many. Like, yeah, like maybe the AI can self-optimize the product and manage everything also. I don't know.
Anthropic, I think, I don't know if it was a week ago or 2 days ago, because right now the time space is kind of very elastic. But Anthropic throw a graphic where you can see where they think that the current AI can perform pretty well and where they are performing right now, no? And especially management was kind of super high and very small penetration right now, no? And coding was high, but the penetration was a little bit bigger, no? And yeah, I agree that I think that something big is going to happen regarding management with AI and so on in the next months or weeks.
I think we'll see something very weird, which is AI is managing humans, honestly. Because some stuff, like we're still bottlenecked by the physics of the world, and we're gonna see AI telling humans, just go pick up this thing, and like, I'm pretty sure that will happen. Sorry?
Deliveries, it's all automatic.
Yeah, it's just like a transition, but...
The fact that you modify the way you do the prompting because of the interaction is already the AI modifying the humans or managing the humans.
All right, we had one question there and one question over there in the back, I think.
I think that you have said that you don't think that there's a specific way to buy engineer or whatever, but I'm curious about what you guys especially do about this like context engineering where, for example, like so right now people use specs and they do spec-driven development and they specify everything about what they want to do, or some people, like you said, you do a lot of documentations. We all know that the last the last point that contains all the information in technology is the code, because the code is what gets executed, right? But how do you manage this knowledge? You specifically, like how do you do it right now? And how do you judge the granularity that you do this? For example, if I say coordinating, hey, go build an authentication system, it's very different than if I say, well, do YDC and things like that. It's like, how do you judge the specificities? Is a tasting, or how do you think about this?
First of all, probably I didn't express myself well, because I don't mean that that we write a lot of documentation. I mean that we focus on the documentation and we take care about a lot about that, no? Because one thing that it's the recipe for disaster is to having incoherencies, no? And imagine that you change a way of authenticate users, but in some place of your documentation was the first way of doing it, no? And then I think that this is why I say that it's super important to invest on that, no? And imagine that when you create that audit log that I told you before, no? You forgot to put it in Cloud MD, and then the new code is being developed without having that in mind, and there is some part of the code that it's been audited and another part that is not. No, I think that it's important if you want to rely on a lot on AI doing the correct thing. No, I think it's and it's not easy to say the perfect way of doing is kind of finding the.
My question is, how do you do it? I don't like. I understand that because how I do it is very different. I started doing it some way. It's like, how do you do it in your company? If you can share it, I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. We rely on a cloud.md, very crafted, I would say, no, and then when there is something bigger that that it's not always that the model doesn't have to know about that always, then we put that on a doc folder and we link a lot documents, and we always try to think what I would like to have if I go through this folder, or if I was the one that was going through that place, no, and trying to put it easy for them.
In our case, actually, like if you go to the repo and go to the organization, there's another repo that is called AI Toolbox. There we have our process on how we follow. And in our case, we are much more hardcore. We don't have documentation. Any type of documentation. And we just like built a process that essentially kind of like, well, documentation. We just have like some key pointers and that's it. And then we have just a process that we follow every time to develop. And you can see there in the plugin where we follow like a research plan implement process with like more additional steps, but we're adding and we are like iterating on top of that. But we follow that. And we make sure that all the plans and all the researchers are in the repos that we work with. And that is like another thing. Like you can check it out. There's like a description of the process we follow and why we follow and how and so on. So if you want to see like a concrete example in our case, there it is, like it's open source. So like check it out.
One thing, and then Guido, if you have to say something. One thing that we didn't talk about, but it's very important for us in this process of research and everything, we don't enforce anything through context. That's why we don't have documentation, right? So we don't enforce using the right tools or the right libraries through context or documentation of any kind. What you do is for those particular cases where you want to enforce something, we try to think it in the same way that you would think it if you have a team of 800 people and 200 of those were interns. I cannot let them do that. So we have a lot of post hooks, linters, every verification tool that we can incorporate, we incorporate to actually make sure that if you do something, you do it in the right way. And because code is free, then you can start adding bits and pieces of code or creating your own framework, right, that are going to actually enforce those things, right? And this goes to what Guido was saying, and I'll give you the mic in a second, which is it's very easy to refactor. I mean, it could be expensive if you do it all the time and you have an extremely large code base, but compared to the human cost I had like 5 years ago, it's very easy. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of getting rid of the tech debt very quickly, and then enforcing tools that enforce all the time. Because at the end of the day, if you want to have deterministic behavior, you need to do something like that. And there's another completely separate conversation about how you make it so that your LLM generates deterministic flows, and then you use most of the deterministic flows. But that, like, we don't have enough time. Guido.
I will add just a little bit. I think your question is very, very good because, yeah, truth is in the code at the end of the day, and the more understanding you bring to the code base is great. So we deal with that issue in this company, and we build another company inside of a company that went out. It was called Algor. So I can very quickly tell you, for us, the the key important thing was how to make a human understand the code base very quickly. So the other way around of building. And documentation is one of the things. That for that, we have built an AI that was documenting the code, trying to bring from everywhere it could the business documentation. Keeping update is super hard, and that we were doing, but that you can automatize the documentation, the automatic documentation at each modification in the repo, for instance, and you are careful with the human annotations only, just not to modify those or calling the responsible of that thing, because the human annotation has more value than the other one. For that, a separate tool that is always sync with the code, and that you can humanly interact on top of the documentation. Yeah, so it's like a parallel git of version control of the code and documentation on the side. There's always a discussion there. If you put that thing in the code, you put it outside, up to you. And another thing, which this one, yes, I will highlight, it's one thing is understanding code, but what you want to do in the code base is abstract yourself, understanding a top-down vision of everything. It's not just the code, but how the thing communicates, what are the libraries, which is the technology. And the one that, and then you go to psychology of human, and let's take it as an onboarding project, which you have at least 6 months of onboarding, between 3 and 6 months, which is super expensive. So we went for visual representations of code bases, and well, you know, yeah, visual stick to the code and stick to documentation, everything updated automatically. So visual is much easier for some. You have everything accessible, but when you add visuals and you go up to the code base and you can navigate that thing as a 3D Google map, when you have nodes, imagine it, no, like a SimCity kind of thing. It's entertaining, and there's kind of a game of the onboarding and it's in the code base, and that seems to work. I don't know if it's exactly what you were asking for.
I just wanted to know, because I think that we all are implementing our way to do it, and it's very important to know, like, other people, how they do it. So maybe for example, like what you just said about visual. It sounds like very easy, and I think that if we do visual implementation, then maybe people from non-tech background can jump in. So,
yeah, and for technical people as well, sometimes we narrow down in one place and we don't see the whole thing, and you end up doing a lot of things here that was easier just to do it. So you want to have that view and interaction of people on top of that thing as well. So that thing is like, it's two things, like for doing the things you can do it, but like you need to find value. One of the things that we were finding as value is like in this breaching of the gap between top management and the very technical, the ground kind of thing, and the field kind of work. Sometimes you need to refactor or something like that. It needs to be communicated upwards, and that communication is super hard to do. So with this understanding of the code base, it's much easier to invest in the right places of the code base, because otherwise a refactoring will never get approved. And that was one of the things that I think just find good business models. The documentation is a mirror of the code. That's the thing that we use sometimes to justify why so much effort in this part. So nowadays, if you have great documentation, you basically have the code.
Sorry, in our case, we also don't have much documentation. We kind of also enforce a process. We use a plugin called Superpowers for Cloud Code. It's like very structured in like the steps that you follow, and I think like it helps a lot. Like it's always doing the research. It's always making sure it has the right context. So it's kind of like figuring out the documentation as it goes. It will never get outdated.
That's the trick. I think we had one more question. Yeah.
I guess to continue on the conversation that we started about visual code and part, I mean, there are companies where nobody looks at the code and they approve the PRs. If the research is good, if plan is good, you have all the tools, linters, tests, and even runtime agents that collect observability metrics. You build all the harness, everything is there. What's the point of having the source code human readable after that? And there was a big discussion on Twitter, right? Whether there's going to be any kind of human readable source code in the near future, this year even probably. Right? And then the question of whether IDEs were going to die and they're going to sustain. What we see right now, I guess, in the survey is that Cursor and GitHub Copilot are popular in big organizations, enterprises, because they cannot really invest into, let's say, processes that go around cold code and not really looking at the code. So I'd like to hear what's your take on this. Whether do you think this is like we're going to have a human readable code and IDEA is going to maintain, or really the future of software engineering is going to change dramatically? Because I think this we didn't touch deep enough yet.
Before any answer, I just want to say one sentence. Is assembly readable to you? And I will just...
Who wants to answer?
With a lot of effort, still is, I think, but I don't think it's teached anymore. Nobody taught it.
I don't know. Something that I'm thinking lately is like, for example, usually companies optimized for like a stack where, there was a good overlap of you will have access to people that you can hire that can read this stack, and, there's, good community behind it and things like that. Now in the new framework, I'm thinking maybe I rewrite this in Go or in Rust or whatever. Like I'll just rewriting whatever is best for this use case, and I have no idea how to write that. So maybe that's pointing in the direction of we don't really care. At the same time, maybe you want to audit in some kind of way, like maybe. So I guess there still needs to be a way to like get to the depths. But yeah, that's all I can say.
At the end, when you are pushing code to production, you need a way to know that code is right, that you are not going to break anything. No, right now, if there is, if we continue investing on ways on ensuring and automating this check, then we eventually we will get rid of these human checks. No, but for now we are not on that point yet. At least for a big percentage of the pull requests.
I think I agree with what we're saying, but at the same time, I mean, if you follow history, we have been abstracting technology we built since ever. Well, we have DNA, and we have no idea how to read it exactly. So your answer is in the question, basically, in that sense. But at the same time, if you read, for instance, you get the SSH story. Remember, well, if you go to a security thing, it's one of the key elements because there's bad people out there, bad people.
Right. We've been over 20 minutes, maybe a little more. We have food and drinks outside. We're going to be here, so you can ask us questions. I hope so, unless you need to run away. That's okay, too. Thank you so much for coming. It was great having you. And please give a big applause to the panel.